Hi, I'm Elizabeth and today I'm here with my second weekly reading video, and I thought this was going to be a short one, but then I've had a great reading weekend which helps me have something to actually talk about. So at the end of last week I had 3 books on my currently reading list, and this one, The Horse, the Wheel and Language, I haven't read a single page of this weekend or this week at all. I'm just going to put that aside for now. However, I also had 2 other books on that list. One which was my current audiobook, that was Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence. I had 2 hours left of that one and I finished that on my commute on Tuesday, and I have since started the 3rd and final book in that trilogy called Holy Sister. And I'm not going to say more about that today because I want to wait until I finish the series and then I'll talk about it as a series rather than singular books. And then I also did finish A Ripple from the Storm by Doris, which is the 3rd book in the Children of Violence series, which is a coming-of-age story of a young woman called Martha Quest. And I talked about this at length last week, so I don't really have much more to add to it. I would say I talked a lot about the political sides of this book last week. It also really examines relationships between people, particularly between male and females, about potential marriage or marriage and how marriage will change the relationship between people, and sort of the role marriage played in society in the 1940s when this story is set. It's also a book that's very much told from the female perspective, which I enjoy reading, so I very much enjoyed reading this book. And I think, well, at least at the moment, I think that I will be picking up the 4th book in this series sooner rather than later. I mean, I think it's been 2 years since I read The Proper Marriage, which is the 2nd book in this series. But at least right now, I feel very motivated to go on and not wait another 2 years before picking up the next one. I will also say that these books are all self-contained stories, so you don't really need to read the others to make sense of it. I would say if you want to read these novels, it would make sense to read them in order because they are like a chronological portrayal of a young woman growing up, but there's no problem in reading any one of these novels as a standalone novel. You don't need to read it as a series, but I am doing it that way. So I finished my audiobook on Tuesday and just went straight to the next in the series, and I finished the Doris novel on Friday, and that meant that on Saturday this was the only physical book on my TBR, and I wanted a book to bring with me out to the park because it was a lovely sunny day and I wanted to read outside, and this just wouldn't do because it's too heavy to lug around with me. And so I ended up starting 2 new books on Saturday instead. The first of which is Outline, no, that's the first book, Transit by Rachel Cusk, which is the follow-up, the sequel to Outline, which I read last summer. These are books about a woman who is going through a divorce, and in Outline she is in, I think, Greece to teach at a writing course, and in this one she is moving to London to an apartment with her 2 young sons. And the format of these books are the same, that in that each chapter just portrays a conversation she is having with someone else. In some cases it's one person, and in a few cases, at least in this one, there are multiple participants in the conversation, but mostly she just refers these conversations, she just writes them down. There's not much of her own judgments of what's being said. There are, however, a lot of observations about the physical appearance of the person who's talking and about the environments around them. And I really, really like these novels. I like her attention to detail and I like the thoughts they make me have. But these are also the kinds of novels where I can easily see the points of people who don't like them. But yeah, as I said, I am enjoying it. I read half of this yesterday sitting on a bench in the sun, and that was magnificent, and it was exactly what I needed, so it was great. And I'm thinking I'm gonna get at least another portion of this read today, which is Sunday, and yeah, I will probably finish this during the beginning of next week, I think, because I really am enjoying it, and it's quite an easy read. It's the kind of read that just flows naturally for me. And also, that this might be a superficial thing to say, but I really like the font of this book, and it's just very airy and nice to read, so I am enjoying this. And then I also started another one, and it's Proust and the Squid, The Story and Science of the Reading Brain by Marilyn Robinson. And this is a book I bought last year, and I really wanted to read it, and I put it in a pile on top of my bookshelf that's books that I have bought, but I want to read them before I shelve them. Sadly that pile has just been growing and growing, so this is kind of drowned in it, and I've sort of forgotten about it. But in a recent video, Mark Nash was re-hauling some of his favorite non-fiction books that had been lost in a mold attack in his library, and this was one of the books that he replaced, and he talked very favorably about it. So it made me remember it was sitting there waiting for me, and yeah, yesterday I picked it up. I'm only 40 pages into it so far, but it seems very fascinating, and it seems to be exactly what I wanted it to be. The only thing I would say is that it was slightly harder to read than I anticipated it would be. This is written for a popular audience, but I think you would benefit knowing some little things about linguistics before going into this, just simply because she uses a lot of wording, a lot of terminology that is not explained. So if you haven't encountered those words before, it might be a bit overwhelming going into this. But I don't know, it's hard to read this book as anyone but myself, and for me this wording is common knowledge, but yeah, so far so good. I'm thinking this is going to be very interesting. This looks at reading and how reading has transformed the human brain. So it's divided into 3 parts, where the first part is talking about how humans came to read and how that altered the connections made in our brains. And then the second part is going to talk about how an individual learns to read following an individual child, and the processes that happens in their brain when they learn to read. And then the third part is looking into people with dyslexia and how having that fault in how your brain works makes reading hard for you, and maybe how that affects other areas of your life as well. Well, I can't tell because I haven't gotten to that part yet. I've just read the introduction where she's laid out what she's going to do in this book. But yeah, I am very intrigued to read the rest of it, and I'm glad Mark Nash sort of nudged me into picking it out of my pile. So that was the short and sweet of this reading week for me. Next week I do plan to make some headway into this book, and I'm going to be back to my normal commute, so I will probably get a long way further in my audiobook, The Holy Sister. I do plan to continue on with both of these, and I'll probably finish this, I predict, during the next week. And if I need to pick up something more, it very well might be Planetfall by Newman, because I am feeling in a sci-fi kind of mood, and this has been recommended to me by several people, and I've heard nothing but praise for it, and I'm very eager to dive into this as well. So that, I think, will be my reading plans for the coming week. And when I'll see you here next time for next week's wrap-up, I will be on my holiday because I'm going to be off work for 3 weeks after this coming week. And I'm very much looking forward to that. And that should give me a lot more reading time in the weeks to come. And probably I'll be going back to book buying as well, because I'll be spending 17 days in London, and I can never go to London without buying books, it seems. So I haven't bought a single book since I was in London in February, March. I mean, I did buy 37 books during that week. So, I mean, I've been trying to make headway in that pile before going back and probably getting a new pile. But we'll see if I can be a bit more reserved this time around. I don't know. Yeah, that was all for today. Until next time. Bye bye.